Hello, friends. Hope you're doing well today. Um, it's December 23rd here in Japan, and well, here I am in Kee-tah-kew-shoo. I'm not in England, which is what might be suggested by the background, which is a photograph I took in 2010. But anyway, since it's Christmas, I thought I'd make a Christmassy background. This is, I think, the third time I've used it. I've been doing various videos on different topics, but today it's continuing with Frederick Victor Dickens's translation, The Magical Carpenter. And so, without further preamble, I will share chapter 5, which is what we've got to, Ishibama. All right. And I'll try and make that a bit larger so it's a bit easier for me to read, actually. If I can. Hang on a minute. Hold on. Whoops. Make it larger, make it larger. Yeah, there we are. That's about right, isn't it? Good. So, I shall begin. Chapter 5, Ishibama. How the daughter of Funanushi fell in love with Yamabito. Thus, then, the horse ran away with Matsumitsu clinging desperately to its neck and feeling as if he had lost heart and liver. In this condition, he got over several leagues of ground, after which his strength gave out, his hands relaxed their grasp, and finally he fell off sideways. At this very moment, a tall man came up towards the spot. He wore a thin bather's garment only, and seemed to just have come out of a hot bath. As he ran up, he seized hold of the bridle of the galloping horse. The horse tried furiously to continue its headlong career, but, drawing the bridle forcibly against the animal's mouth, the man succeeded in stopping it. Leading the steed, he then approached Matsumitsu, who was lying on the ground, gave him some water, and otherwise attended to him until at last he recovered his senses and at once showed his gratitude by repeated obeisances. "Where have you come from?" asked the man. Obeisances would be bows, I think, in this case. "Where have you come from?" asked the man. "I am a traveller and have come from Yebara, where I lodged the night." "That is over 3 leagues away. If I had not stopped you, the horse would have galloped as far as Michinoku." Well, there's a note here, the extensive northern portion of the main island of Honshu, that would be. So saying, the man laughed, but Matsumitsu thanked him over and over again for his timely help. Whoops. Just then, Suminawa, who in his alarm for Matsumitsu's safety had followed him, came upon the scene, and on hearing how the man had stopped the horse, expressed his delight and thanked him warmly. "And pray, sirs," asked the man, "to what province do you belong?" "We are Hida Craftsmen." "There is a man who lives in Hida named Inabe no Suminawa. He is an old customer of my father's who is always talking of him. Don't you happen to know him?" "I am myself the very man you mention," said Suminawa. The man, on hearing this, bowed his head to earth and cried in a glad voice, "An unexpected pleasure to meet you thus, sir. I know only one Eastland resident. That's a Kanto area resident, I think, or uh, Master Funanushi of the Ashiya family. Just so. My father's name is Funanushi. My own is Saomaro. For generations, my family has dwelt in this village of Ishibama. Pray let me conduct you to my father's house." With these words, he invited Suminawa to follow him. The house was a spacious one. There were 3 or 4 store buildings attached to it, and altogether it was a fine mansion. As Suminawa entered, the father, who had been told of the approaching visit, came out to meet him and expressed his pleasure at receiving such a guest. "When I was in Hida," he added, "you were only 7 years old. Your father treated me with the greatest kindness. I can never forget his hospitality, which I often recall with delight." With such and other complimentary expressions, the old gentleman received his guests and offered them refreshments and sake. The horse, meanwhile, was fastened to a willow that grew by and there's a footnote here, against willow. It was de rigueur in old China that a willow tree should grow by the entrance of the house. So absolutely essential, de rigueur. The horse, meanwhile, was fastened to a willow that grew by the entrance. And Funanushi, noticing the animal, ordered his people to give it a feed of grass. Some cut grass was accordingly brought in a trough and set before the steed, the horse. But the men presently exclaimed, "What a strange creature this is! He eats nothing, he does not move even. He only rolls his eyes from side to side, really a very odd kind of horse." Matsumitsu was much amused and explained what sort of a thing the horse was, to the astonishment of Funanushi and his son, who expressed their admiration of Suminawa's wonderful craftsmanship. Ah, this is the wooden horse, isn't it? Crafted by Suminawa. While this colloquy was going on, this dialogue, several doctors had entered the house from within, several doctors had entered the house, from within which presently a great clamour was heard. "You have someone ill?" asked Suminawa. "Yes," answered Saomaru. "'Tis my sister. Since last spring she has been on her couch with sickness. I am an adopted son, not a real child of Funanushi, but she is her parents' true daughter and their only child. Therefore they make much of her and cherish her tenderly. It was a dreadful grief to them when she fell suddenly sick." Suminawa, producing a head of reishi which he had brought with him from the Eternal Land, said, "Take this and infuse it a while, and then try the effect of the potion upon the patient." Saomaru accordingly took the head of reishi gladly and went within with it. Some time elapsed, and then Funanushi came from the near apartments and said, "The medicine you have been good enough to give my daughter has done wonders. She has recovered her spirits as if waking from a dream, and forgotten all her pains." From the mother down, all were delighted beyond words. What kind of medicine could it be, they asked, to cure her with such astonishing rapidity? In short, the whole household leaped for joy. Saomaru, too, was more than content. Matsumitsu, with a satisfied countenance, took it upon himself to explain. "You may well be astonished. This medicine is altogether unknown of the common run of doctors. The master and I, after all sorts of dire sufferings, were glad to obtain it from the Lord Rohan in the suddenly clapping his hands to his mouth and glancing at Suminawa as he muttered, "Ah, there wags this unlucky tongue of mine. I am forgetting that I may again be struck dumb." The master, however, merely began to laugh. The host and his son understood nothing of this byplay, and with many entreaties, as night was coming on, begged their visitors to put on the fine quilted bedgowns they offered and retire to rest. Suminawa went to his couch without more ado, but Matsumitsu, who loved a talk, would not at once lie down, but, turning to Saomaru, told him long stories about the master's wonderful craftsmanship. He took the opportunity also to ask Saomaru what it was that ailed his sister. "I don't quite like to talk about it," was the answer. "It is a delicate matter. The truth is, my younger sister, her name is Murasaki, now in her 14th year, is inferior to none in face and form, and possesses besides a most agreeable disposition. Well, last spring she went to Mukai-gaoka in company with others to view the cherry blossoms, and there she fell in love at first sight with a youth whom she saw among the holiday makers. After this a change seemed to come over her. She gradually lost her health and had in the end to take to her bed." Then why, if the cause of her illness was known, was she, and that goes to the next page, so let's just look at the footnote. So this footnote relates to Murasaki, I think. I think it said. Yes, Murasaki. Her name is Murasaki. So the name of more than one princess in Japanese history, it is also the name of the common Japanese lithospermum and of the color purple. So that would be a plant, lithospermum or lithospermum, I suppose. And of the color purple. Yes, there is the Murasaki River. Sorry, Murasaki River. Beg your pardon, not Murasaki. Murasaki River in Kokura, which is the Purple River. That's in Kee-tah-kew-shoo, where I live. Then why, if the cause of her illness was known, was she, next page, we have to find the next page, was she not allowed to follow her inclinations and accept the youth as her betrothed? Well, there's the difficulty. The youth's family and our own have for a generation or so been at variance with each other, and so of course no notion of such a marriage could be entertained. And the youth, who is he? His name is Yamabito, and he lives in Yebara County, but he is usually known as Kaoyoshi. Why, cried Matsumitsu, clapping his hands, we were this very day lodging at that youth's house. He is more than merely handsome, he is gentle in disposition, clever, and well educated too. Although there may be an old quarrel between the families, as Yamabito is not one to harbour resentment, and keeping up a feeling of enmity, there should be no difficulty in arranging a marriage, one would say, and for my part I should be delighted if Yamabito were to accept your sister. They continued talking for a while longer, and then separated and went to their couches. The next morning, Funanushi went up to Suminawa and said, It has long been a wish of mine to add a hall to the temple I attend, and as by good hap you have deigned to visit us, sir, I hope you will be able to remain here a space and build my hall for me. Gosh, doesn't ask for much, does he? It is most important, was Suminawa's answer, that I go to Hida and then up to City Royal, Kyoto, but nevertheless I can stay here some days and build your hall. City Royal, well, Kyoto or Miyako it used to be called. Then cried Funanushi, greatly pleased, as I have relatives in Shimosa, the province east of Musashi, who possess a quantity of good timber, we can go there together and pick out what may be most suitable. So, without losing time, the necessary preparations were made, and Funanushi, taking Suminawa with him, went down to Shimosa. The same day, Matsumitsu returned to the sake tavern in Yebara, and related all that had occurred, amongst other matters, how the girl Murasaki was sick with love for Yamabito. Go and offer to take her as your wife, he added, but Yamabito only coloured, and not knowing what to say, said nothing. Coloured, I suppose, means blushed, yeah? Then Matsumitsu turned to the mother and said the same thing, but the old dame began to weep and replied, The Ashiya family and my husband's were once very friendly, but a quarrel arose about some property, and a lawsuit began, in the course of which my husband found himself unable to produce a certain deed which was lost and which was wanted as evidence, a title deed for land, I suppose, or property. Then the case failed, and so the friendship came to an end and has never been renewed. After my husband's death, scarcely a year later, the two families were still more estranged. The Ashiya family has grown very wealthy too. They want for nothing, while since my husband's death we have become poorer and poorer, and now no one would think of marrying into our family, living as we do in such a mean house as this. Where my husband could not achieve success, how should I achieve anything or attempt to win a bride from the Ashiya family? So hopeless was the tone in which he spoke that Matsumitsu could find nothing to reply. Suminawa and I, he said, after a pause, intend to remain there some little time while we build a hall for Funanushi. Then, shouldering his wallet, he returned to the Ishibama mansion. He found that Murasaki had recovered from her illness and that folk were thronging to offer their congratulations. The girl herself left her chamber and, opening the shoji, see note on page 15, so that's the paper screens, in fact, the shoji that gave on the veranda, sat there gazing into the forecourt. Matsumitsu glanced at her through the bamboo fence and said to himself, Though her face is thin with her recent sickness, 'tis a pretty girl, and I should like to bring her and Yamabito together. They would make a fine couple. And as she must at the bottom of her heart feel miserable, I would I knew how to arrange their union as man and wife. With such thoughts in his mind, he went to her chamber and tried to amuse her in various ways. Among other things, he produced the crab Suminawa had made and showed her how it could crawl about. But though pleased, the girl's thoughts ran only upon her handsome lover. The same day he looked out for an opportunity of getting close to the girl unobserved and said to her, I know quite well whom you are thinking of. I have long had an affection for Yamabito and will talk over matters with him and afterwards arrange the marriage. But first of all you must write him a letter. Murasaki felt like one who has unexpectedly caught the boat at the ferry and, forgetting her timidity, clasped her hands and, with tears in her eyes, besought Matsumitsu to help her. He was full of sympathy, but then what plan was to be adopted? The letter was sent to Yamabito, and as he was neither stock nor stone, he soon answered it. He was neither stock nor stone, meaning what? That he had human feelings, I suppose. The girl was excited and delighted, and as every month she used to go to the temple of Kwanjon at Asakusa. The great temple of Asakusa did not exist at the time of the story, but from time immemorial, Kwannon, the Buddhist goddess of mercy, that is, had a shrine there. Asakusa is in Tokyo, isn't it? Every month she used to go to the temple of Kwanjon at Asakusa, though since her illness in the spring she had not done so. She cried, "This very day I will go to Asakusa," and taking her mother over, she went there in a covered bamboo chair. Matsumitsu accompanied her together with a bevy of servants, men and women. What he had planned before, Matsumitsu had made known to Yamabito, and now invited him to come secretly that day to meet the girl. Well, the party went to Asakusa, and as the great temple there is the holiest in all the East Land, all of Kanto area, there was a never-ending throng of temple-goers of both sexes, as one need hardly say. "Oh, that Kwannon, the goddess of mercy," the girl prayed, "would vouch me some signal sign of her grace." After her prayers, descending the steps of the great hall, she looked about, stopping now and then, hoping to see Yamabito, but saw nothing of him. "If I do not meet him today, when shall I see him?" she muttered to herself desolately. Pretending to take pleasure in the autumn foliage, she lingered there, here and there, until at last the sun began to sink in the west. Matsumitsu also, in a disappointed frame of mind, kept wandering about, but no shadow of Yamabito was to be seen. The attendants, men and women, who accompanied the girl, now said, "Come, come, Miss Murasaki. 'Tis time to go home. It is growing dark, and your lady mother will be expecting you." As it was impossible to linger about the temple even a short time longer, perforce the girl had to get into the chair to return. But just then a man came running up out of breath. On looking at him, Matsumitsu saw that it was Yamabito himself, and reproached him with being so late. "We are tired of waiting and are on the point of returning. The young lady has already got into her chair." Kago, that would be a kind of palanquin. But Yamabito interrupted him. "This morning," he cried, "my mother had a violent attack of spasms. I was obliged to stay and look after her. That is why I am so late, altogether against my will." He tried to elude the observations of the attendants and approach the chair, but without success. Pretending that he had something particular to say to Matsumitsu, he darted a glance at the chair, and Murasaki gave him a wistful glance in return. Although they had been parted for months, now he was at her side. Were she only to see him as if in a dream, she was ready to jump out to greet him, but containing herself, she did but gaze at him. They were nearer each other than when she fell in love with him at Mukaigaoka, and she found him so handsome that she was more in love with him than ever. The party had now entered an avenue of trees little resorted to by the temple-goers, so that it was comparatively a solitary place. Suddenly a loud cry came from the chair. What had happened to the young mistress? The bearers, in alarm, set down their burden, while the rest gathered round to learn what was the matter. Matsumitsu, with an air of great agitation, exclaimed, "This is another attack of the illness she had some months ago." Looking into the chair, he added, "She has not yet come round. Is there a good doctor to be got here? Let somebody go and fetch one." Then turning to one of the women, he said, "Run to yonder house and beg for some hot water for her, and the rest of you go home as fast as you can and say what has happened. As I am here, there need be no anxiety if she remains a little longer." Having thus got rid of the attendants to be cast about for a way of letting Yamabito enter the koshi, that's a sort of litter or chair. Okay, it's not a kago in this case, but it's probably a similar kind of palanquin. Enter the koshi and have a talk with Murasaki. But the two bearers still remained to be disposed of, and Matsumitsu, scratching his head, tried to think of a plan of getting rid of them, but could hit upon nothing. At last, in the midst of his perplexity, he suddenly bethought himself, and all at once, bending back, he cried, Yamabito and the bearers, in alarm, went to his help, and Matsumitsu, in a small voice, as if his strength were exhausted, murmured, "This sort of attack always comes on when I get anxious about anything. Sake is the only remedy. It cures me at once. See if you cannot get me some hereabouts." A bearer forthwith ran off towards a sake tavern not very far away. Matsumitsu, seeing that one of the bearers still remained, turned to him and exclaimed, "I forgot to tell the man the sake must be warmed, then cooled and warmed again before it is brought to me. Go after him as quickly as thou canst, and tell him so. And by the by, thou canst take a draught thyself," throwing him some coins, whereupon the fellow took to his heels and ran off as directed. "Now those troublesome folk are got rid of," exclaimed Matsumitsu, addressing Yamabito. "You can go up to the chair." But the youth was bashful and hesitated, whereupon Matsumitsu grew impatient. "They will be bringing the hot water and sake directly. A general about to fight the enemy would be less timid than you are." Then he took the youth's hand and led him to the chair into which he was about to put him. The girl, whose illness was a mere pretense, and who had listened with amusement to Matsumitsu's plan for getting rid of the servants and bearers, opening the door, drew the youth's face towards her, and forgetting her modesty, threw her arms around him, when a woman's voice was heard saying, "I have brought the hot water, sir." Yamabito jumped away in alarm. "It is only warm," said Matsumitsu, looking at it. "Only warm?" replied the woman. "Why, it's boiling." But Matsumitsu shook his head. "Warm, only warm." And the woman, in no good humor, had to run back to the house to make the water warmer. Taking Yamabito again by the hand, Matsumitsu exclaimed, "Now, sir, you can enter the lady's chair," and was helping him to do so, when up came one of the bearers, exclaiming, "Here is the sake, sir," and once more Yamabito had to jump aside. "This sake," said Matsumitsu, after looking at it, "is too hot. Take it back and get it cooled, and then bring it to me." "It can cool here, sir, as well as there," answered the bearer. Matsumitsu, at a loss what to do, again began to scratch his head when the woman came up with the hot water. Now he was at the end of his devices, and there was nothing more to be done. Just then a man wearing a rush hat appeared, bounding up, and taking it off displayed the features of the girl's father, Funanushi. Drawing a deep breath, he exclaimed, "As I and the master Suminawa were returning from our journey to Shimosa, I saw, just now, one of my servitors running towards us, and asking him what was the matter, was told that my daughter had gone to Kannon this day and was taken ill on the way. So I lost no time in coming here. I hope she has recovered." "Yes, she is quite well again now," said Matsumitsu. "She has had a sharp fit of hysteria." At this moment, Funanushi caught sight of Yamabito, who was standing a little distance off, and exclaimed, "Is not that youth a son of the Takeshiba family? There is a breach between them and ourselves. What is he doing wandering about here?" "He came here unexpectedly," said Matsumitsu, leading Funanushi aside, "a little while ago, and I was thinking of speaking to him when some hot water and sake were brought, and I could not do so." "Is he a friend of yours? For certain reasons we hold no intercourse with that family," said Funanushi, adding as he turned to the women, "Have nothing to say to that fellow," with an angry look upon his face. The bearers lifted the chair on their shoulders, while the girl, putting her face out, gazed tearfully in the direction of Yamabito, throwing him a parting glance full of regrets. It's all very Romeo and Juliet, isn't it? Two hostile families, and lovers in each family. Her head shook with emotion, and her hair ornaments trembled and nodded, so that one would have taken the corals that shone on them to be cherry blossoms fluttering in the breeze. As she was borne away and lost sight of her beloved, she seemed to herself like an unmated wild fowl returning to the dark regions of its northern home. Yamabito stood there, looking after her from a distance with straining eyes, but could not utter a word while his tears flowed abundantly. As it was now dark, the bearers and attendants were anxious to get home and hurried on as fast as they could. Yamabito stood motionless for a time, looking after the chair as it was borne away, but there was no help for it, and he could do nothing. Presently, a bell struck the 6th hour, which is 7 p.m., and so depressed did he feel that he could not bear the misery. The girl put her head again out of the chair to obtain a last look at her beloved, but Funanushi came up and, saying it would be bad for her to catch a chill, pulled down the bamboo blinds. Then she sank back, drowned in tears. Thus all Matsumitsu's clever schemes had failed in procuring the lovers the interchange of a single word, and he hung his head in despair, following Yamabito with his eyes as they parted, one going northwards and the other southwards. Presageful indeed of woe, it seemed, must their 4 lives have been. Okay, I think that's the end of the text of this chapter, but there are still the plates to look at. So what have we got here? By Hokusai, isn't it? The Hida Craftsman, in pursuit of Matsumitsu, arrives at Ishibama and meets Funanushi and his son for the first time. Okay, right. That's nice, isn't it? See page 117. Suminawa overtakes Matsumitsu at the house of Funanushi, whither he has been carried by the wooden horse. Matsumitsu is wiping the perspiration from his body after his headlong ride, while Suminawa points to his henchman. Under the gateway stands the son of Funanushi, and by the horse, the master of the house, Funanushi himself. All right. Sorry. Uh-huh. So that Matsumitsu is this guy here, wiping the perspiration from his body, I think. Suminawa points to his henchman. Oh, is that which one is Suminawa then? Is that the one? Is that Suminawa there? Under the gateways. Under the gateway stands the son of Funanushi, and by the horse the master of the house Funanushi. So okay, good. Next plate, if there is one. I think there are 2 more. Yes. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Let's see. Wish they were in color, but there we are. Funanushi's daughter, Murasaki, being in love with Yamabito, Matsumitsu acts as go-between and accompanies her with the intention that they meet in Asakusa village. Right, and see pages 124 to 125. Murasaki is in the norimono kind of sedan chair in the boat. The temple of Asakusa is seen in the distance. Okay, so let's have a look at that. Yeah, so the temple of Asakusa is up here at the top of the picture. And here is the kind of sedan chair, or norimono, as it's called. So there'd be one person carrying at the front and one at the back. And it's closed so that you can't see who's inside. Of course, the better versions would be for daimyos. All right, and what have we got here? Another rather nice plate illustration. Matsumitsu, in order that Yamabito and Murasaki may have an interview, sends off the servants on false errands. Oh, yes. Quite funny. Right. See pages 128 to 132. Murasaki is in the norimono shown in plate 17. So that's Murasaki here, inside the norimono, well, sedan chair, I suppose. And here are the servants being sent off on errands. Fools or false errands, yeah. Good. So that then, I shall stop the share. That then is the end of this chapter of The Magical Carpenter, which is chapter 5, isn't it? Okay, good. So I hope you enjoyed that. And I will continue reading the rest of it in due course. Thank you very much, and a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.